Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Friday Fire at 9 a.m. I believe this is our fifth or sixth one already, so thank you all for hanging in there with me. Today is going to be a really, really good topic. Today we're going to be talking about debt struggles, how we get into them, and how we can get out of them. What's up, Jason? Thanks for tuning in. Adon, how's it going? Good to see you. Karina, thank you as always. And then just a quick reminder as people are jumping on. What's up, John? How's it going? Monica, good to see you. And as people are jumping on here, I just want to remind everybody why we're doing this. So at the turn of the new year, 2019, I wanted to do something to challenge myself, get out of a comfort zone for myself, and really doing these Instagram lives has really been able to help me to do that. And I also wanted to do something that was going to allow me to provide value for everybody out there, for some of the people that I know, and hopefully eventually touch a lot of people that I don't know also. So I just wanted to come on Friday mornings and give these talks and really just share some things with you. How's it going, Nessa? Good to see you. Melina, what's up? Thanks for joining us. Angie, hi, how's it going? So anyways, I just wanted to come on live and give you guys some tips that I felt might help you out with your everyday life. And so yeah, today's topic is going to be about debt. Oh, by the way, this is very interactive. And so, if you hear something that you like, definitely drop a like on there, shoot me some fire emojis. If you have questions along the way as I'm talking, feel free to interject with questions and I'll do my best to respond to them as we're going. But thank you everybody that's joining me live. I really, really appreciate you guys. Corey, how's it going? Good to have you tuning in. And Phil, what's up? Anyways, let's jump into this. So a huge problem nowadays is people who are struggling with debt. And people, a lot of times people feel like their debt might be getting too high, or maybe it feels like it already is too high. And I know how that feels because I'm somebody that in the past has struggled with that at the same time. And I know, sometimes we want to blame ourselves or blame our spending. How's it going, Hiroshi? But sometimes it's not our fault. I remember one time in my life, I was just between jobs. I'd gotten fired from a job, and it took me a while to find that next position. And in the meantime, I was supplementing my lack of earnings and putting the necessities of life on a credit card. So I wasn't really, I didn't have a spending problem. I wasn't going out shopping or blowing my money on ridiculous things, but I had just gotten myself into a situation where I just really didn't have any choice, and I had to rely on some credit cards to help supplement that and fill that in. And so and sometimes, by the way, sometimes it is a bad spending habit. And we end up in this situation where we might be in debt, or we see our debt climbing, and it gets out of control very quickly. And when it gets out of control, that's when it gets scary, actually. So, just to put this into perspective, if you might have, a credit card with $5,000 on it, and your minimum payments might be a couple $100 a month, and it might not seem like that big of a deal. But if we keep going down this path, and every time we don't have money, we put it on a credit card, or, we feel like $200 a month isn't that bad, so we put a little bit more on the credit card, and $300 a month isn't that bad. And eventually what starts to happen is that starts to snowball out of control. If that balance gets up to, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, what you're gonna find is that all of a sudden you're paying $1,000 a month, and that's just your minimum payment. You're not even paying down the debt. And now you gotta think to yourself like, oh my goodness, like, what could I be doing with an extra $1,000 a month? If I just had $1,000 extra a month in my life, I wouldn't have to be living paycheck to paycheck. I could be saving money for myself, all sorts of things like that. And so we really have to focus on getting out of debt and staying out of debt. And a really good resource for this, guys, is a book that I read. It's called Your Money or Your Life. The author is Vicki Robin, Vicki, last name Robin. And it's called Your Money or Your Life. And she just does a very, very good job of putting into perspective our spending habits. And she goes into kind of like the psychology and the history of how we spend and why we spend, and this whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses, and how, enough is never enough. And how when we were kids and we got like our first bicycle or our first Barbie doll or whatever it is, our first baseball mitt, how we got such a tremendous sense of enjoyment from that. And it was actually truly fulfilling and enjoyable because it was the first time that we had ever gotten something that we really, really wanted. And so now, that's kind of programmed into us to where we think that by consuming and accumulating, we're going to get that same level of satisfaction from our next purchase or from our next thing that we acquire. And so we acquire and we acquire and acquire, and we purchase and we purchase and we purchase, and we get into this situation where we have this uncontrollable spending where we're just trying to get, and then what happens is now we're stuck in this cycle of we earn our money, we spend our money, we get in this cycle of earning and spending and earning and spending and earning and spending. And she says, she calls it, we're not even making a living anymore. Now we're just making a dying, because that's all we do for our entire lives, and then we pass away. And so she's saying, there's got to be a better way to think about this stuff. And so she really says you have to kind of change your psychology. And you have to kind of figure out, what is your enough point? At what point is your consumption enough? And by the way, this goes against what the economy wants. This goes against what all these manufacturers want you to believe. Because what's happening is, that let's say I open up a factory and I make a TV. I'm manufacturing TV. I hire a bunch of people to make these TVs. Well, now I have to convince everybody in America that they need a TV, that they're going to be happy, that they're going to get fulfillment from having a TV. In fact, I want a TV in every single home. And then now what happens if there's a TV in every single home? Everybody's got a TV. Well, I can't stop making TVs. I can't just lay everybody off. I can't just go out of business and shut the door. So now, as a producer, I have to convince everybody that they would get more fulfillment if they were a 2-TV household. See, now you need a TV in the living room, but then you also need a TV in the bedroom. And so now I can produce more TVs. Okay, well, what happens when everybody has a TV in every room? Okay, well, now I got to convince you that you have to have a flatter TV. It's got to be a bigger screen. It has to have a curve on it. It needs to let you see in 3D. Just all this stuff that just continues to happen. So there's always going to be something bigger and better that you can always continue to chase, or you can determine for yourself ahead of time when enough is enough. And that's so key. Just knowing your enough point is really one of the biggest keys that you're going to have in stopping this cycle of overspending and going down that rabbit hole. And so, that's number one. You have to look at the psychology of why we spend what we spend. And I get it. Like some of us don't have a spending problem. Some of us are legitimately just paying our bills, and we don't overspend. And I understand that too. Nonetheless, though, the solution can't be debt. Because when you go into debt, now, not only do you owe the money that you didn't have, but now you have to pay interest on top of that, and you end up paying so much more of a time. And so some people carry their debt forever. Some people carry debt into their 60s, into their 70s. I'm talking just credit card debt, where this is literally just $200 a month, $300 a month that you're paying to that credit card. And it's like, if you were paying $200 a month on a credit card just for your interest payment for 30 or 40 years, that $200 a month, instead, if you were to have invested that money for 30 or 40 years, we're talking about $500,000 in your pocket, $1 million in your pocket. You're costing yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, because you are paying this money out in interest instead of paying that money to yourself in the form of savings and growth and investments. And so it's just hugely important to stay away from debt if you can, but what do we do if we've already gone down that road? What do we do if we're already in debt and we got to get out of it? We got to find some way to get out of this stuff. And so, I came across this challenge with a client of mine actually who was, quite frankly, just swimming in credit card debt. I think this person had maybe 10 different cards, potentially 12 different cards, for a grand total of about $50,000 to $60,000. It was shocking actually how much this person had, but she was so far in it, she could no longer see a path to get out of it. And so I met with her, I listened to what she had going on, and I did my best to construct a plan to get her out. And in fact, the plan that we had constructed for her would have her debt free in about 3.5, 4 years, as opposed to her just kind of, just swimming in debt for the rest of her life and never coming out and feeling like she's trapped and suffocating. And so I just want to give you just a few tips. This is not going to be, super in depth, because I know each of you out there have your own personal situation. So this is by no means just a blanket solution. This is not one size fits all, but I do want to give you just a couple of things that maybe if this is you, if you feel like you're struggling in these areas, maybe 1 or 2 of these tips might be able to help you out. And so number one is, a big thing is like, okay, you have first certainly identify the total amount of debt that you have. You got to figure out on paper, how much debt do you have? How much money do you have saved? What's your net worth? Your net worth is all of your assets or your savings minus all of your liabilities or what you owe. Figure out if you're even positive or if you're negative. Figure out where you're at, where your starting point is, and then we can work towards getting you to the positive after that. And then let's say you do have a large amount of debt. Let's say it's $20,000, and one thing that'll help you is to separate it into chunks. chunks that you're going to tackle one chunk at a time. So if it's a total of $20,000, let's break that up into 4 different chunks of $5,000. Because whenever you have a long goal like that, or a big goal that seems very large, or sometimes even too much to overcome, a lot of times it helps us to break it down into bite-sized chunks, right? Yeah, school loans actually can be a big part of that for sure. By the way, school loans is a little bit different than just credit card debt. School loans, I kind of understand why we do that. We do that so that we can better ourselves and give ourselves a better opportunity at a brighter future, hopefully. The good thing about school loans is that traditionally those are going to come at a very low interest rate, and relatively anyways, and they give you a long period of time to pay that stuff off. You almost have to treat a school loan nowadays like a mortgage on a house. Like on a mortgage on a house, I get it, very few people have $500,000, $600,000 or $1 million to come up with all at the same time. Very few people have that, and so it's understandable why somebody would have to go into debt for that reason. Same thing with school. College has become very, very expensive nowadays. And so, it's no shame in having to take out a loan for that and paying that down over the course of your life. Those are kind of two of the ones where, we can't really get around those. I'd even throw maybe a car loan in there, because I get it. Like a lot of us, we live in Southern California, at least I do. No matter where you live though, a lot of us need transportation to get to work so that we can actually earn money to pay our expenses. And so I would even throw a car loan in there. Of course, make it an affordable car. Don't get a car loan that's outside of your means. But those are kind of maybe the three debts that I would say are okay to carry. And if you can get out of this thing without carrying even those, even better. If you can save up for a car, maybe save up $3 or $4 grand and get yourself a car that's serviceable, even better if you can do that without debt. Or if you can work your way through college, I know it's extremely difficult, but if you can get your way through college without having to take on debt, maybe you go to a community college for a couple of years first or whatever it is, then that'll put yourself in a leg up or a little bit ahead just for starters. So anyways, going back to the credit card debt, separate it into chunks and tackle one little chunk at a time. It's like the person that's going to try to run the marathon. They don't try to just go run a marathon on day one. They don't go out there and try to just knock out 26 miles at a time. In fact, what they'll do is they'll break it up into smaller chunks, and they'll try to tackle those smaller chunks first. Like maybe at first they tackle a 5-mile run, and then eventually they'll tackle a 10-mile run, and then eventually a 15-mile run, and then at the end, they'll get to the full 26 miles that they're looking to go to. So separating into chunks can be a big help, and especially for a lot of us, our credit cards are already spread across 4 or 5 different cards anyways. So it's already been separated into chunks for you. So now we just have to identify which one we're going to pay down first. Not only that, by the way, it's important. I know I'm talking about debt right now. I'm paying down the debt, but the first thing you have to get in order is your income versus your expenses. You have to figure out a way to spend less money than what you're earning. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much money we throw at these credit cards, because we're just going to put more money back on the credit cards because we're living beyond our means. And so your income has to be higher than your expenses. And if it's not, then there's only 2 ways that I know that you can solve that. Number 1, you have to lower your expenses. Sometimes that's not something that you're always going to want to do, but you got to figure out how. You got to figure out how to separate wants versus needs, and you got to just start living your life based on needs only and eliminate the wants until you can get your expenses low enough to where you're living within your means. How's it going, Sanaj, Jackie? Just want to say hi to a couple of people. Jackie, thank you for the input on topics. By the way, this one's for you. Carlos, I really appreciate you. By the way, this is not just from Jackie. A few people actually hit me in my inbox with this topic, and so I just wanted to kind of take care of that for you guys. So thanks for joining me, Carlos. I love seeing you. I haven't seen you in a while. Back to the topic, though. The real root of the problem is figuring out how to A, lower your expenses, or B, the other thing that you can do is increase your income. Maybe you're in a position where you might be able to make a lateral move and increase your income just a little bit, give yourself some breathing room, or maybe you have to look into some sort of side hustle or making money on the side somehow, doing something to generate more income. So lower your expenses, increase your income. Now that that's taken care of though, let's take again a look at kind of let's say we have 5 different credit cards, 6 different credit cards. Which one do I pay down first? And what we do, a lot of times what we do is we'll pay just a little bit above the minimum on all 5 credit cards. Let's say I have 5 credit cards and my minimum on each credit card is $100 a month. And maybe I'm gonna pay $125 a month across all 5 credit cards. So I feel like I'm getting somewhere because I'm not paying the minimum on any one. So I'm kind of, I'm accelerating how much I'm paying on each of those cards. In fact, though, that might not be the most advantageous way to go about it. So one good way one good strategy is to pay down the card with the highest interest rate first. So a lot of these credit cards, sometimes you might get a credit card that has a very favorable rate. Maybe they're charging you 11, 12, 13% if you got a really good rate on that card. Some cards though are outrageous. Some cards are charging you as high as 22, 25% on some of these things. So you got to figure that card that's charging you 25% is actually costing you more each month than the card that's only charging you 11%. And so you really want to eliminate that card first to get that off of your back, because that one card is actually growing your overall debt faster than the other ones. And so one good strategy might be to tackle the one with the highest rate first. And so what I would recommend in that situation, if that's what you're going to do, instead of paying $125 on each of your 5 cards, drop all 4 of your other cards down to your minimum. Just pay $100 on each of those. That's going to free up an extra $100 to throw at that fifth card. So instead of putting $125 on that 5th card, now you can put $225 on that 5th card. So now imagine how much faster that 5th card gets paid down. This is key, by the way. Once that 5th card gets paid down, now you got to take that $125 that you were already putting towards that card, then you got to put it at the next one. So now you're overpaying that next one by $125, right? Now you got, what is it, 200? Well, it was $225 going to that card, plus the 100 you're already putting on the next card. So now you got $325 going to pay down that very next card. How's it going? Alex, thank you for the input. I really appreciate it. Andrew, what's going on, man? Appreciate you. I love you. Thanks everybody for tuning in live, man. I really, really appreciate the support. Brenda, how's it going? Good to see you. Next up, so that one is paying down the highest interest rate first. That's a really, really wise idea. The second one, and this is actually, believe it or not, for psychological reasons, this next one is actually my favorite one, even more favorite than paying down the highest rate first. And that is pay down the smallest balance first. It might not make the most sense financially in the long run. I'll be honest with you, because it does make the most financial sense to pay down the one with the highest interest rate. But let's say you have 5 different cards again. One card has $5,000, another card has $4,000, another card has $3,000, another card has $500, and the last card only has $100. Well, okay, this bigger card might have the highest interest rate, and so financially it might make more sense to pay down that biggest card first. But this card over here only has $100 on it. So from a psychological standpoint, if I can eliminate one of those cards and now I only have 4 payments to worry about, that can actually help me go, just from a mindset standpoint, that can help me actually get a lot farther to pay that down. And then also that's going to free up whatever that minimum payment was, that's going to free up that payment for my next smallest card. And so there's 2 strategies there that you can choose from. One, pay down the highest interest rate first. Also though, number 2 is pay down the smallest balances first. Because then, I feel like it's almost like a stress or a relief off of your shoulders when you go from having 5 cards down to having 4 cards, down to having 3 cards or 2 cards or 1. And so it's that can be a really, really good tip to help you get out of there too. Another one, really quickly, Milena, how frequently do you suggest clients create a formal balance sheet, etc.? Kind of sounds like getting into net worth, debt ratio, stuff like that. Thank you, Milena, for the question. I recommend every single one of my clients and people in general, my client or not a client, doesn't even matter, just in life, you got to have a balance sheet for yourself. You have to know where you're at with your debt and your assets. You have to know if you have a net worth or if you have no net worth, because once you figure out where you are, then you can figure out a game plan to get to where you want to be. And that's everything right there. Same thing with your income versus your expenses. How are you going to ever know if you're spending more money than what you're making if you have no formal way of tracking what you're earning and what you're spending? And so I think tracking that stuff is very, very important. They say you have to inspect what you expect. They say where results are where progress is measured, progress is made, all sorts of stuff like that. So you got to take a good close look at that. Thanks for the question, Millen. I appreciate you. Another tip. So far we have pay down the highest balance, pay down the highest interest rate. Another one is take a look at getting a 0 interest rate credit card. So I know this is kind of like, wait a minute, I get another credit card? Like, I'm struggling in credit card debt. What are you talking about? But if you are struggling in credit card debt, chances are you're getting credit card offers in the mail. They like you. And if you have even a decent credit score, Open up the offers. Open up the offers when they come in. You're gonna just tear up most of them anyways, but open them up, because some of those offers are gonna come in and offer you an introductory 0% rate of return on balance transfers. So now, you might have a brand new credit card that says, hey, we're gonna give you a $5,000 limit. Great, I have this $5,000 credit card that I'm paying 22% on. Now I can just get that transferred over to a zero balance card. You just bought yourself 12 to 18 months of zero interest. So now the minimum payments that you were paying on the other card that were going mostly towards interest, you can make that same payment on this new card, and now you're actually paying down principal. So I would recommend getting as much of your balances over to a zero rate card or some sort of zero rate scenario as you possibly can. The more you can just do that, the better. And I see Adon here says he actually just recently did a balance transfer, killing debt like crazy. Appreciate the feedback, man. That's a really good one. Finally, the last strategy that you might try, and you're gonna need some good credit for this one, but you are going to need to, Mom, how's it going? Good to see you. You're going to want to get a personal loan, maybe a personal loan. So again, let's say you have 4 different credit cards, different rates of return, 15%, 20%, 22%, and the total balance on all of them is $10,000. Well, what you can do is you can go to your bank. And if you've been banking there, if you have a relationship there for a while, a lot of times that can help. But go to your bank and ask them for a loan for the total amount. So now what you're going to do is instead of having $10,000 worth of debt across 4 or 5 credit cards, now you're gonna have $10,000 worth of debt, but all in one place in one loan. And the benefit of that is a lot of times these loan rates are a lot more favorable than a credit card is gonna be. So instead of having a 22% rate on your credit cards, now you can get a loan for the total balance, knock that rate down to 7 or 8%. So now you're able to pay that down a lot quicker. The other good thing about a loan is that it's actually going to be forced discipline. So with a loan, they're not going to give you this infinite term like a credit card does. A credit card is designed to keep you in debt for 30 years. Seriously, if you're paying your minimum payments on your credit card, it is literally designed, they figure out your minimum payment because that's the amount that it's going to take to make sure that you carry that debt for the next 30 years of your life. Asking, is that the same as consolidation? Maybe yes, maybe no. It depends on what the company is doing, but a lot of times, yes. We're talking about, in this scenario, we are talking about consolidating a bunch of different credit cards or a bunch of different debts, consolidating them down into one place where hopefully you're gonna get a more favorable rate. The downside of this strategy, though, might be that because it's not this kind of infinite 30-year balance that you're going to carry, they want you to pay that loan down. They want you to pay that loan back. They're going to give you a term, usually about 5 years. And so because it's 5 years, it's a fixed payment, and it's not all these little payments. So let's say all of your minimum payments in total were $500. Well, your minimum payment might be a little bit less. Your minimum payment might be, let's call it $450 or $400 a month. However, it's not spread across your month, so it's going to feel like a bigger hit. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say you have 5 different credit cards and your payments are all $100 a month. You're paying $500 a month on those cards, but it's coming every couple of weeks. Like maybe one payment comes out on the 1st, another payment comes out on the 15th, another payment comes out on the 20th. So you don't feel it as much as you're gonna feel this one huge payment all at once. But, I mean, you're gonna be making the payments anyways. Whether you spread it across the month or you have the discipline to just make one big payment in a chunk, it's coming out of your account regardless. And so if it's gonna get you out of debt quicker, if it's gonna see you debt free in 3 to 5 years instead of carrying this debt for the next 25 or 30 years, I think it's a good idea to take a look at something like that too. So those are kind of the main strategies that I've come across that have helped me personally in my life, but then also that I've used to help my clients out as well. If you feel like it's too much for you to look at on a personal level, contact a financial planner, a financial advisor, or somebody that's going to help you get organized. Because sometimes it just takes a third person looking at that stuff for you to help you get organized, to help you say, hey, this is my debt, these are my balances, these are my cards, these are my rates of return. Give me a plan. How do I make a strategy to get out of debt? If I follow this plan, how long is it going to take me to get out of debt? A lot of times, just having a third person come in and take a look at that stuff with you can be a big help. So find somebody who you know that can help you out with that stuff, and get on a plan to thanks, Milena. Get on a plan to get that stuff taken care of. And I promise you this. I promise you that if you have a plan, you will already start to feel better. even if you haven't climbed your way out of debt yet, it's this feeling of chaos that is really so disturbing to us. It's this feeling of, I don't know when this is going to end. I don't know if this is going to end. I don't know how this is going to end. And we have all this fear and uncertainty, and that's just really, it's really weighing us down throughout our day. But instead, if you just take a look at it and have somebody help you out, put together a plan, put together a strategy, if you follow this roadmap, if you follow this plan, you're going to be debt free in 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is. And by the way, that's way better than having no plan and taking potentially 10, 15, 20 years to get out of this stuff. So at least having that plan in place and knowing that you're making progress towards that goal and you have an end date in mind, that's going to be huge for your self-confidence. It's going to be huge just for your peace of mind, just for the way you go throughout your day. It's going to make you a more responsible spender. It's going to make you a more responsible saver. And then once we knock out that debt, then we can get on to the better things. We can get on to saving for your goals, saving for retirement, saving for the future. And by the way, once you knock out that debt, you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands of dollars extra each month. So your overall financial situation, your standard of living is going to be better. It's going to get better. But it all starts with just kind of taking that snapshot of where you are now, developing a plan to get you to the next place. So if you guys have any questions about this, absolutely contact somebody who you know and trust. If you don't have somebody like that in your life, absolutely, send me a direct message. I'm here to help. But find somebody, get the help that you're looking for. I hope this was of value to everybody out there. I hope that this was helpful. If you feel like there's somebody else who that this message can benefit, absolutely, take a screenshot, post it on your story, tag 3 friends, direct message them, whatever it takes. If you feel like this is a message that needs to be heard by other people, absolutely help me spread the word. And by the way, I'm always on the lookout. So this topic came from the listeners, from the viewers, from you guys out there. And so I thank you so much for your input. I really, really appreciate it. If you have more topics or some more things that you want to hear about, send them to me, direct message me, shoot me a message. Do something to get my attention. I respond to all of my messages, by the way, so I love hearing from everybody. If you guys have any recommendations, anything at all, shoot them my way. Anything, even if it's just about, I don't even know, just whatever's on your mind about this thing, whatever I can do to improve it and make it better. I want to know those things. And so thank you again, by the way, everybody, for tuning in live. I really, really appreciate the support. I love having the feedback in the comments. Love everybody. Carlos, thank you. Please like and subscribe. Turn on post notifications. Is that what they say? I don't even know. Anyways, thank you guys, everybody. I really, really appreciate you. Thanks for joining me here at the end of the week. Make it a strong Friday. Finish your week strong. By the way, take your weekend to not only recharge, but take your weekend also to sort of reflect on the week that you just had, but then also set up your next week as well. The weekend can be so huge because most people just let those 2 days go by. They don't do anything. But man, you could really just take a couple of days to reflect on what went right last week, be grateful for what went right last week, but then also, set up your next week. What can you do better? What can you do in the next week to get yourself to that next level? And so I know I come at you at the end of the week here, but I'm telling you, that champion mindset, you should be looking at this like the beginning of next week already. So hopefully this message was good for y'all. I love you. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next Friday at 9 a.m. for the Friday Fire. Cheers, everybody.